Sri Lanka have collapsed like a pack of cards in a stiff breeze. They had no idea what was happening. Their campaign ends this World Cup as New Zealand have won by 61 runs. A massive victory for New Zealand. New Zealand were put into bat. They got 168 thanks to Santner and Rachin and Cole McConchie. Sri Lanka in return had no answer. A wicket of the first ball and everything went down from there. We are back at Cricbuzz Live. I've got Rohan and Zach with me. Zach, that's a massive loss and extremely disappointing as a Sri Lankan fan. Just the intent that they showed, there was no intent at all.
Yeah, Sri Lanka will be very, very disappointed with the way their campaign has unfolded. I think they showed some spark in the early part of the tournament. Could have made the impact, created those kind of situations, but couldn't really close those situations. I think that's how their story has been, and that's the disappointing fact for them. That if you're playing badly, you're not able to hit the rhythm. It's still understandable, but why the frustration will be more is because they were creating winning situations. They were creating those moments where if they win those moments, they would have had a completely different campaign. Today's game also was no different than other. The England game also was a similar sort of a story where most of the game they'll think that okay, they've made the impact and created a platform from there they can win the game. First 15 hours of the game today, no one gave New Zealand a chance of winning the game. But from there, to have this kind of a margin, something drastically has to go wrong. And I think over the whole tournament, they'll see that their batting has been letting them down.
Yes.
Over dependence on one or two players is something which they have to look into. And closing games with bowling as well. So, you're doing one phase of the game well, but you're not able to really sustain it over the whole game. And that is what is required for any team to make a huge impact on tournaments like this.
Well, you said something has to drastically go wrong. Rohan, we spoke about this. You all both said that the power play is important. They need to go hard, especially when the new ball bowlers are out there. Just have a look at that power play. 20 for 2.
I tell you what, if it was 20 for 5, then you think okay, 3.33 is fine. You've lost only 2 wickets. But yet your run rate in a game where you know that it's only going to get tougher as the game goes on because of the field restrictions being more relaxed after the first 6, you've gone at a run rate of 3. That for me is unacceptable because it shows a lack of planning. It shows that you've just gone and then sort of said, okay, we'll see how it goes. There's no clarity of thought on how you're going to chase this total down. The other thing is, if you lose this game, you're out of the World Cup.
Yes.
You're better off being 65 all out than 107 for 8. 65 all out in 12 overs or 13 overs where you've tried to score the runs.
Fighting.
Yeah, go down fighting. Doesn't matter. What you've done is you've basically petered it out.
Yes.
And then got to 107 and you've lost it out of the World Cup. It doesn't matter. Net run rate here doesn't matter for Sri Lanka. You lose this game, you're done. And that's exactly... So you're honestly better off if I was a Sri Lankan fan, if Sri Lanka were all out for 65 and trying to play the big shots and then you've gotten out thinking, okay, listen, they tried to win the game. Didn't happen. There was maybe a gulf in quality on the day. New Zealand were far superior to us. We lost and you can accept it. But being 8 down, you're thinking, what have you done in those 10 overs? You've basically tried to bat it out. And you've got no...
Yes.
I mean, it serves no purpose.
When we're on a domestic flight and that plane takes forever to land, it lands after 5 hours, passengers start clapping in sarcasm. It's almost, that's what happened with the Sri Lankan fans. When they got to 100, they were clapping. And that's so disappointing, Zach, because you spoke about their over-dependency on that first top 3. Nissanka got out on the first ball. And then they had Asalanka who had come in for today's game. And they had Kusal Mendes. He was striking at 50. When your opener is striking at 50, he's got 11 of 22. It's a big concern because 11 of 22, 5 of 9, and then there was just nothing to it. And then Mendes came in with 31 of 23. It was too late.
Yeah, they couldn't really get their innings going. We did touch upon in the mid-innings show where once New Zealand got to this kind of a total, we knew it was always going to be tough. But to turn things around, they needed that spark from the openers, and that has been their strength. So Nissanka is someone who had he made that impact, then suddenly things would have been maybe different. But that first blow was such a big one for Sri Lanka to recover from, and it was evident.
Yes.
It was evident from the way their innings panned out. And what's smart from New Zealand side is that respecting the conditions, what we touched upon, understanding the conditions, and just utilizing 3 overs of seam bowling.
Yeah.
I think that shows that if you are proactive in this game and see how the conditions are supporting, and then just back that, you make that much harder for the opposition also to take advantage of. And New Zealand did exactly that. So everything coming together, just resulting in a game which turned one-sided, which no one really thought that it was going to go this way.
No,
Rohan,
honestly,
when is it-
what Zach said earlier just now, that at the end of the first 15 overs, no one gave New Zealand a chance because we thought they'd be 120 or 125. Now, even if they were 120 or 125, I actually think this would have been a game. Now we're looking at 108. But this could have been a game that Sri Lanka wins if they restrict New Zealand to 125, 130.
The bowlers didn't finish off.
Exactly, because at the halfway stage there, at 125, 130, New Zealand are deflated. Sri Lanka, the mood in the Sri Lankan dressing room is elated. They think, okay, wow, we are in control. Now at 169, when you go out to bat, you think New Zealand are in control. We got to do some heavy duty stuff, and you keep losing wickets.
Yes.
So that 5-over spell was for me, obviously, and not for me, for most people, was what turned the game around in favor of New Zealand. So, lots of credit in the batting department to Santa. And just the way he batted.
Well, I mean, there was Santner, and we saw how they finished off well with their 84-run partnership. But when is the last time we've seen New Zealand bowl 17 overs of spin, Zach? It's New Zealand. We are used to seeing New Zealand come out with those pacers, but 17 overs of spin, where there is a certain Rachin Ravindra who's picked up his best figures. He's got 4 wickets, given away just 27, and Matt Henry hasn't finished his quota of 4 in spite of picking up 2 wickets.
Yeah, and that's what you've seen with New Zealand, isn't it? You've seen the tactical changes. You've seen that clarity in terms of approaching. They're not afraid of trying and experimenting with field placements, with trying different things, out of the box thinking. All those kind of aspects go very naturally with this team. That's how their history has been. Today was no different. It's just that having that many options, and then just because conditions are allowing you to do that, just backing fully to get things done from part-timers as well. Even the 20th over was bowled by Glenn Phillips.
Yes.
But Matt Henry, even if he's had a good day with the new ball, Lockie Ferguson, more than capable, usually the finisher with the ball. They're saying, okay, fine, conditions are working in spinners' favors. Let's just get as many overs of spin as possible. Rachin Ravindra having a great day out there, turning the ball by a meter or two, and just been utilizing the conditions well.
But again, very smart of Rachin Ravindra. He got that turn, but he was also, bowling it wide. He was mixing up the lines very well today.
He was thinking as a batter.
Yes.
He knew as a batter what would be tough, what line, what length would be tough for him to hit, and he bowled that line. But look, you can think like a batter. You still got to have the control as a bowler to pitch it in the right areas. So, all credit to Rachin Ravindra. What it's done is obviously it's shown that New Zealand have in their ranks, if needed, players who can, chip in with spin bowling. And that is always key to sort of have in your armory on subcontinental pitches. Normally in the T20 game, you're going to get flat pitches and you're not going to utilize them. But on the off chance that you get a pitch like this, it's always good to know that you've got a few bowlers who can come in and do the job. Look, India had that for a long time.
Yes.
When you look at, our team, from, look at the World Cup winning team. You had someone like Viru, who could bowl off spin. You had Suresh Raina, who could come and bowl. So you had bowlers, who weren't generally bowlers, but if needed, and obviously Sachin. I mean, Sachin's got some magnificent bowling records. So these were in a sense, you wouldn't call them genuine all-rounders, but if the need arose and if the pitch and the circumstances suited them, they were more than handy bowlers.
Well, UV had that magic
UV
arm,
also,
so
yeah,
did Viru have
yeah.
a magic arm. Like we've seen
Absolutely,
that all
yeah.
along.
And that is what really, when you have that, it gives you, in a sense, in the shorter version of the game, it gives you a balance of playing more batters.
Absolutely.
Because look, in Test cricket, you need 20 wickets to win. In the white ball format, it's all about runs. The currency is runs. It's not about wickets. It's who scores more runs. It's not who takes more wickets. So the more batters you have, and that is why, you've seen us, the Indian team trying to play with more all-rounders, even if they are batting all-rounders. What they're trying to do is get 2-3 overs from Shivam Dube, 2-3 overs from someone else, and fill that quota. So look, if you have that in your 11, it's a real benefit.
Zach, Rohan, New Zealand always feels like that good child of a parent who does everything correct from childhood, gets the good marks, goes and does an MBA, gets married at the correct time, gets a good salary. That's what New Zealand feels like. They just know everything and they do it so correctly. They're so structured about the way they go about things. But we have to give credit to Santner and the way he thinks through stuff.
You basically described me, huh? Good child. Everything good.
Yeah, you always done everything correct, right?
Yeah.
Everything, the MBA, the marks, all of that. And then the games.
MBA, the marks.
MBA, no. But BCom, at least I graduated. But, they want my grandparents and parents want me to graduate. I graduated.
So, well, New Zealand is the Rohan Gavaskar of world cricket. But they're just doing everything correct. And Santner's that, example who's so calm, composed. He knows exactly what he wants to do and he executes his plans.
Look, I mean, when you talk about New Zealand, you always associate them with this, isn't it? Also, it's a country where cricket is not the first ranked sport. So that much less pressure to deal with. Had New Zealand lost this game, I don't think anything would have changed. Their approach doesn't change much. This team is not very affected by the results. Very process-driven team, like I said, not afraid of thinking out of the box, experimenting with things, strategizing. I think one thing goes very well with this team. If you have to describe them, they think about the game, they study the conditions. They'll have all these data-driven approach, and they'll come with a plan, and they will try to execute it to the T. If it doesn't go their way, so be it. They'll turn up again and they'll do the same thing. That's how they've been playing their cricket.
Well, look, it's a really important point that Zach makes about pressure. It does not mean that New Zealand themselves as a team or even the public there does not expect New Zealand to win. They expect New Zealand to win. They want New Zealand to win. But what happens is if you lose a game, they're not going to get trolled on social media left, right and center. India has lost one game. And we've seen what's happened.
Yeah.
The backlash with, why is the X being selected? Why is Y being dropped?
Yes.
Why is, the captain doing so-and-so at a press conference? The backlash has been tremendous after losing one match. Where in a period over the last 6-7 years, we've been so successful. So that pressure is not there on the New Zealand players. And so you can go out there sometimes and play with a little bit more freedom. You're not worried in maybe doing things which might be a little left center. Where you think, okay, listen, let me try something unorthodox and see whether it works or not. If we try and do something unorthodox and it doesn't work, then you're in trouble. That's the difference.
You're talking about the pressure. New Zealand were really under the pump when they were out with the bat. They were 84 for 6, and then the way they resurrected themselves from there on, it's a record in its own, because from 84 for 6, they've gone to 168 for 7. Zach, this is something you're talking about. One, the Sri Lankan bowlers didn't close things off, but we have to give credit to Santner and how he handled that pressure.
Yeah, you don't see these kind of games often, isn't it? For this kind of a situation to have a serious fight back. The credit has to go to Santner. The way he built that partnership with Cole. What's his name? Cole McConchie.
We are a little one.
Cole McConchie.
Yeah,
McConchie.
It's pronounced because we heard a couple of comments as McConchie.
Yeah,
but it's a proper noun.
Yeah, but I mean, both of them, they staged that partnership very well and got New Zealand to the total. From there, it looked like a convincing winning total at that stage.
Yeah.
And it just unfolded that way. Dew also was not a factor. And maybe that's why, on the hindsight, Sri Lanka will be thinking that you lost the game against England. You couldn't chase down a smallish total. Here again, you had the opportunity, maybe winning the toss, batting first, batting freely, getting to a total and then building the pressure would have been a smarter approach. But that's in the hindsight. I think, that's something for them to take note of and then plan it accordingly. You can't always keep blaming that, okay, we need to play on a flatter pitch. This is something which you didn't have control over. Yes, you expressed yourself as a captain at that stage where you said, okay, we need some batting friendly pitches so that we can make more impact and stuff like that. But here, the fact remains that the pitch is going to be like this. New Zealand also made that tactical change in accordance with that. To play freely, to play bravely is something which was missing. And that's the point which Rohan was also trying to make earlier, that when you are not a question of net run rate, that if you lose the game, it's just about winning and losing, right? If you win the game, you survive in the tournament, you stay alive. If not, you're going to be knocked out. So play as if it's your last game, right? And that's something which was missing from Sri Lanka after they've been put under pressure in those last 5 overs when they were bowling.
Rohan, their campaign also, they started off with 3 wins, and in those 3 wins they beat Australia. So we see their journey in this World Cup. So 3 wins and then those 3 losses.
Yeah, but when you look, we're talking about Australia, but Australia also disappointed in this World Cup. So it was, you got to say that Australia-Sri Lanka game was basically a clash between 2 teams which have performed well below par. So it could have gone on, whoever plays slightly better on the day. But I just want to make a point. Shanaka, the captain spoke about flat pitches, and I can see why.
Yes.
Because they look clueless against spin.
Absolutely.
They look like they never, like what's happening over here. And that's not a good sign. You can, you may want to play on better pitches because you think that suits your team, but you still, at the international level, you've still got to have the ability to navigate a tricky service, navigate spin bowling. They look completely clueless against spin. And now what that does is, anytime you're thinking, okay, listen, if you're playing Sri Lanka, all we've got to do is prepare a surface which is going to be a little bit, which is going to afford a little bit of turn, which might not be a flat batting surface, and they're going to be in trouble. Even in that chase against England, you think they should have chased it, but they look again. So look,
and it was spin again.
They was spin again. That's what I mean. So it'll be. Zach will tell you this: if you're a bowler and you spot a weakness in a batter, that weakness spreads around quickly. He's suspect against the outswinger. He's suspect against the short pitch delivery. He struggles against the ball that comes in. Now, all teams will be thinking, Sri Lanka suspect against spin bowling. We need to prepare pitches accordingly, and that's 70% of the job done.
Yeah, and you're saying this because Zach, you spoke about how this team is in transition. So we get that it's a team in transition, but this is just as a cricket fan. I don't even know how a Sri Lankan fan would feel, but we've grown up watching the likes of Sanat Jayasuriya, Atapattu, Sangakkara, and Aravinda De Silva. The way they played spin, it was intimidating as fans. From there, the legacy has gone down to players who are really struggling and they have no clue what's happening.
And that's what is surprising. I think, being a subcontinent team, you're expected to play spin well. You are always aware about what kind of options one must take, isn't it? And that is something which is missing. You look at the options which are taken just because it's a format which allows you to play at high risk shots. Doesn't mean that you just play those shots for the heck of it. So you got to have a certain plan. Whether you're going to step out, get to the pitch of the ball, whether you're going to access the areas of covers where there are no covers or deep mid wicket, where there are no fielders positioned to take that catch if you're going to take the aerial route, or you're going to head down the ground. You look at New Zealand, there was a clear plan when they were batting.
Yes.
Initial phase, if you see when Glenn Phillips and them were batting, they were looking to just hit straight, as straight as possible, making use of the power. With Sri Lanka, it looked like they were forcing the issue and looked like how Rohan said, clueless in terms of how they're approaching the game. And that's the worrying factor. And that's how the numbers are also showing. So basically, as you are playing tougher opponents with decent spin, conditions are favoring, you don't have an idea in terms of how to approach it, how to have a particular plan and then back it. And if you fail in doing that, it's still acceptable.
Yes.
I want to ask Zach a question because he spoke about Sri Lanka and subcontinental team struggling a bit. We see that with India also.
Yeah.
We've seen that with India also in Test cricket. Struggled against New Zealand. South Africa got the better of us in home condition. Why are subcontinental batters? I mean, there's no why, but is it because, and you're again someone who's played so much of international cricket, is it because generally when you play international cricket, the pitches are really good to play on, bat on?
That's one of the major factors, I would say. And also, it's the conditions are getting neutral in many ways.
Yeah.
Like, you go to any country right now, you're getting similar sorts of pitches. Maybe in first class, when they're playing first class, you get these kind of tough pitches and you get used to that. When you make your journey from first class to international, you are actually decent in playing spin because that's what you're facing day in, day out in those conditions. But now suddenly when you're playing international cricket for a long time and you're getting similar kind of pitches, the moment there is extra swing, you've seen that struggle from the batter.
Yeah.
The moment there is extra spin, the batters are finding it that much tougher to adjust.
Well, talking about adjustment and finding things tougher, Sri Lanka have made things much tougher in that points table. Let's have a look at what happens in that points table. England have got that queue. New Zealand, after this win, have got 3 points. Pakistan with 1. Sri Lanka have crashed out of the World Cup because they've lost both their games. But they have gone down and they've probably, Rohan, taken Pakistan down with them because of the net run rate.
That net run rate is massive. So Pakistan are going to have to hope that they win by some humongous margin.
Yes.
So, I mean, to make up a net run rate and hope, to make up a net run rate of +3.
3.5.
3.5. No, but they are 0.
They are minus
Yeah,
0.4.
so wow.
Yeah.
They're going to need to do something absolutely magical. They're going to have to pull a rabbit out of the hat.
Yes. Well, this is even if New Zealand loses to England, Pakistan's net run rate is going to come into play. So it's not, whether New Zealand win or lose, even if they lose.
Well, I think New Zealand is sitting pretty at this stage. I think with one more game in hand, it's just about, simplifying it for them, just going on to beat England and then their spot is secured.
Yes.
Then even if Pakistan beats Sri Lanka, doesn't really matter. But if not, then for sure there will be, that calculation will be in play. But New Zealand have given themselves a nice cushion right now to stay alive in the tournament. So that's the advantage, and they'll take a lot of pride looking at this points table from how the game has unfolded, because this is a tremendous achievement looking at what they were at 15 overs, 90 runs, and turning it around in such a fashion where they have net run rate of +3, which is better than England.
So look, what they've got to hope is they can't see, if you're Pakistan, you can't look at it as a question of +3. You've got to look at it as a question maybe +2.5, because if New Zealand win,
If they lose, then net
but
run
if they lose, their net run rate comes down. So you've got to hope that they lose, and even if they don't lose by a big margin, if it comes down to +2.5, you've got to take that and then try and figure out what you need to do to win, because obviously the matches are being played simultaneously.
Yes.
So you don't no team knows what needs to be done beforehand, because they'll play both matches at the same time. So look, oh no, it's consecutive days. It's not on the same time, but consecutive days. So who does Pakistan play first? Or no, New Zealand plays first.
Yes.
New Zealand plays first. So then
Pakistan will
know what they need to do.
Yes.
And they've got to hope that obviously New Zealand lose, and if it's by +2.5, then they can sort of work their way around it.
That one thing is, I don't know when you all started playing cricket that you all need to know maths so well, because most teams don't want to go and look at the mathematical calculations, but this World Cup has just had so many permutations and combinations, and it's going to be happening in that other group as well. So for Pakistan's sake, of course, they will have to look at that calculator. But even with what is happening tomorrow in the other group, there is a lot of calculation. There are 2 games happening tomorrow. We've spoken about the first one. The second game, which happens at 7 p.m, is India versus Zimbabwe. It's happening in Chennai, and there is huge pressure on India getting into this one, Zach, because we know what happened against South Africa, 76-run loss, and that net run rate has just caused so many issues with the calculations and the maths. India will know what their future is with the 3 o'clock game, but they need to win tomorrow. They need to win their next game as well to have things in their own hand.
Well, they'll be very well aware of this fact. And I think if I was there in the dressing room, then it's just about playing good cricket. You can't really look at the calculations and look at the previous game, what's happening, because you're playing on the same day. You got to just focus on your game, prepare well, go out there. And even though you are under pressure right now, you got to still find a way of achieving that routine which is going to keep you in that zone, which is and that's what these tournaments do, right? Like, you
Yes.
talk about the big finals as well. It's about the team which stays in present. It's about the team which is not really getting anxious about what's coming or what's happened in the past. South Africa game is a past now.
But
And
Zach,
Zimbabwe,
logically, wouldn't India need to know?
No,
Because
so
won't they
what-
calculate
what
accordingly?
I
the first
feel-
thing is they got to play. If they play good cricket,
They
then
will.
obviously the net run rate is going to be good.
Yes.
If the net run rate is good, they will know what the equation is. So I think it's all not related that way. Just for outsiders, yes, the
Yes.
outside noise is always going to be that. When you are talking about the preparation, it's always going to be that. But being in that situation, the best thing you can do is to be able to shut that noise and yet find that balance
Yes.
where you can express yourself freely. You can't be reacting to what's happening outside and then play the game, because that's going to add furthermore pressure
Yes.
on you. So I think that's going to be the key for Indian team, along with the changes which they'll be doing. All those discussions will be going on. There will be long meetings. All that is part and parcel. But here, it's going to be the most important thing for the team is what you believe in.
Yes.
How you prepared for this tournament. When you prepared for this tournament, what were the aspects which you were thinking about?
Yeah.
It's about having that belief and backing that belief. From outside you can say, okay, drop Tilak or
Yes.
bring in Sanju, or Ishan Kishan was not even part of scheme of things for the World Cup. But he just, broke the door wide open and then made such a huge impact. So these things happen in the game. You will not have any control. The tactical decisions are going to be critical one. So I think, the Aksar is someone I see is that one change which they should think very hard about.
So for Washington?
For Washington, yeah. And other than that, I think, you got to just achieve that stability that, okay, this is how we planned. This has been our winning formula.
Yes.
So you stick to your winning formula. The result is secondary.
But
But also
Rohan,
Rinku, we heard story of Rinku having gone back for family emergency.
we'll know if he's back or not.
Yeah.
So what do you think? In case he is not back, does Sanju come in? Because if he is back...
Then you've got to think that Sanju does come in, because it's you're getting a batter for batter, so you would think Sanju does come in. But look, again, I think the South Africa West Indies game, if South Africa wins, then the equation is very simple. You just win this game and you win the next game. All this calculation comes in place only if West Indies wins.
Yes, yes.
But otherwise, you've got to hope South Africa wins, and then you're thinking, okay, we beat Zimbabwe, beat West Indies, and you're through. That's all that really matters. So, like I said, there'll be a lot of
Well, if
prayers
fans...
for South Africa tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, the players obviously will be focusing on their games, but
Yeah.
fans, everyone's going to be watching that South Africa game and hope that South Africa wins. The news on Rinku as of the afternoon is that he will be joining the team tomorrow in the evening. So if he's back, he comes back today in the evening, so he gets his place back in the side tomorrow.
I would think so. I
Yes.
mean, you don't want to. I mean, for me, he's a magnificent player. And he's the kind of player that you want at the end of the innings. Zach spoke about something earlier in the show. You need that explosiveness at the start of the innings, and you've got that with Abhishek and Ishan and Surya. And then you need that explosiveness at the end of the innings, and Rinku provides you that. So, the role of a finisher, he's been playing, so well over the last few years that I think he definitely, if he's back, then he's definitely in the 11 for me.
Zach, well, fans have so many questions when it comes to India's selection, because one game that India doesn't win and loses in this big margin. There's so much discussed. That opening partnership average of just 6.8 between Abhishek Sharma and Ishan Kishan. Ishan Kishan, the first two games, he, like you said, broke that door and came in. The next two innings, he hasn't done so well. Abhishek has been struggling. Tilak has been struggling as well. We've seen that Aksar was not in the playing 11. You said you'd like to see him in for Washi. Do you see Sanju coming in? Do you see Kuldeep finding place at all?
See, so far, whatever understanding and whatever you see with the changes which they've been making, Kuldeep was a tactical call when they played in Sri Lanka. You know, so that's how they will keep it very simple that way. You know, and that should be the okay thing to do. But I think other than that, you know, there are certain things which have been creating this whole turmoil. That right now, when you are in the tournament, you just got to somehow back your instincts and back your planning. So if you've been planning the tournament in that fashion, so you stick with that.
Yes.
And that is when things get easy. Right now, you know, with one loss, it's suddenly
So much discussion.
so much to discuss. And what was surprising for me is the call of Aksar not playing.
Yes.
You know, he's vice captain of the team. He's been a regular feature in that playing 11. So why move away from that? That question, if you're asking, it's a valid question to ask, because you know you can't have a very fluctuating thought process within the tournament in the important phase. So I think, you know, that's one thing, is something which is very glaring at me, you know, when I'm looking at the whole scenario. Other than that, you know, Sanju, yes, tough luck. I think it was just a part of planning. You saw someone else was in tremendous form, got the pushed you to be out of that playing 11, but you're still part of the squad. But that's how the game goes, right?
Yes.
And he claimed his spot, and he's made that impact. Abhishek is someone, you know, who has a loss of form as he got into the tournament. Now, if you look at how it's panned out for him in the last maybe a year and a half, you know, he's been your match winner.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now your thought process and your process, your trust in one player, how do you show that? By saying that, okay, you've been the match winner for the team, it's just one innings away for you. So that's how you're going to approach it. If you have to make that tough call, maybe tomorrow's game is that thing, but then you can't go back again to Abhishek. Then, you know, say suppose you replace Abhishek with Sanju.
Yes.
And then you give Sanju one game and then you pull him out again. Then again, you're going to say, oh, you know, it's too bad for Sanju, right? So you much rather than have the investment in one player, because he's made that those many performances, and then you see how it was. That's why, to me, I think Kuldeep is always going to be, right now, looking at this tournament as a tactical call based on the condition based. Chennai, if you think that the pitch is going to be that much favorable for spin and you need extra spin option, then Kuldeep comes in. And Rinku, obviously, you know, based on his availability. If Rinku is not there, it's a straight swap with Sanju.
Yes.
Then you're asking him to do the tough job of not batting out of his position, which is fine. But other than that, I think, you know, Aksar walking in, because you moved away from that thought process. You brought in Washington Sundar when Aksar was anyways performing. You thought that, okay, because Washington Sundar has not played for a while and India is looking at it as an experimental game, and, you know, they wanted to give Washington Sundar some game time. But they've just pushed it a little further, which has backfired, and the result not going your way. The pressure is now back on the team.
Well, we can
I just
go
want
on
to
to-
something about Abhishek over here. One of the reasons why he's so successful is he plays without fear. He puts fear in the opposition. Now, if you drop him for that approach, you're putting a little bit of fear in him, saying that if I keep getting out, I might get dropped.
Yeah.
What you don't want from your high risk, high reward players, and he's a match winner. You don't want them thinking, wait, hold on a minute. Should I not take a risk here? Should I look a little bit to, you know, make sure I get 15, 20 so that, you know, my place in the 11 is settled? You don't want that. You want to back him. He's your match winner. You say, okay, listen, don't worry. Like Zach said, no confusion. You won us plenty of games. Here you go. This is your role. If you get out, so be it. But we know that you're going to win us more matches than not.
Well, it's very, very difficult to be an Indian selector because, there are so many fans, there's so many questions that fans have. It's a tough job, and India is up against a team which is playing with all heart because Zimbabwe goes there and gives it all. They've had a big loss to West Indies, but again, it's a team that gives it all. They've had the blessing of one tall man, Muzarbani. He's picked up 11 wickets for them, and we've also seen Brian Bennett. He's had a great World Cup, got 180 runs so far. Zach, Rohan, unfortunately, their captain Sikandar Raza hasn't really been up to the mark for them. But do you see any changes at all for Zimbabwe?
No. I mean, when you look at that team, I don't think you're going to see too many changes. Sikandar Raza, yes, hasn't been in the runs as we normally expect him to be because he's such a wonderful player and he's a big match player.
Yes.
So I wouldn't be too surprised if he gets runs tomorrow because, the bigger the occasion, he lifts his game up. So there's a good chance, at least I feel that he will put in a bit of a show tomorrow because he knows all eyes on the game. Lots of people watching. And some people rise to the occasion and he's one of those.
Well, Zach, Zimbabwean Pacers have picked up 25 wickets. So they are doing very well. And it's just so good to see what Muzarbani has been doing.
Yeah, Blessing Muzarbani has been around for a while, isn't
Yes.
it? A lot of the talent scouts at the IPL level also have been very keen on him. I've seen him last year also being with RCB. So I think he's someone who is developing into a good cricketer. I think he'll get more opportunities. Like tournaments like this gives you a platform also. Engarawa as well. I remember the Australian World Cup when he was part of the Zimbabwe team was bowling really well, making use of those conditions. So no surprises there that this team is making impact with pace bowlers. Sikandar Raza, I think even though he's not had that kind of a tournament, I think as a captain he's been inspiring the team. So that is something which you have to give him credit for. He's given that statement also in the press, where he's saying that, Zimbabwe has been a test playing nation. Why you are underestimating? We are not the associate nations and stuff. So Zimbabwe as a team has had that kind of a history. They've had strong teams. They've had their dips. But they've always been around. So the cricketing culture in that country is still alive, is there. Talent is going to come through. You need impacts. I think, beating Australia is creating that kind of an impact. India tomorrow is going to be no exception with regard to that. I think it's about going out there, putting up a good show and making that impact, making the pressure be felt on the Indian team tomorrow. So that's something which they'll be talking about.
Who do you think is going to be that impact for Zimbabwe and India? Your players.
Of course, Zimbabwe, I'm going to go with Sikandar Raza. As I just said, because I think he's a big match player. I think he, with bat and ball, if needed, with his off spin, he's very cunning with his off spin. I think Zimbabwe, he'll be my player to watch out for. For India, again, I'm going to go with someone who's a high risk, high reward player, Abhishek Sharma.
Well, for Indian team, I'll go in with Ishan Kishan. I think he's shown some great signs in this tournament. So his continuance will be the key for himself as a player and also for the team to have that kind of impact at the top. And for Zimbabwe, I'll go in with the left armer, Engarawa. I think he's got that spark. Statistically, you'll see that every time you're playing against India, everyone is talking about left armer, what is he going to do? So I think that one bowler you can back.
Well, I can be here for another 2 hours discussing the combinations, discussing why the Indian selection has been the way it has, but we all need to sleep early. It's a big day tomorrow. So we'll quickly have a look at the joy factor, see who's gotten it correct. The question for the joy factor today was, who's the first Kanpur-born cricketer to play an ODI? Rohan Gavaskar thought it possibly could be him, but
for a split second we had a listing, but my first instinct was that it was not someone Indian. That was a tricky, like a trick question.
Well, it's clearly not Rohan Gavaskar. Let's have a look at who it is. Bob Woolmer for England in 1972, 2 years before India played ODI cricket. That's quite a googly there, Joyda. Well done. Let's have a look at who's gotten it correct because we didn't. Ayush Kumar has gotten it correct. Well done, Ayush. Congratulations, you're born in 97. So I don't know how you got that one right, but it's incredible, the cricketing history that you have.
It could be
We're
a
going
Gautam
to-
Gambhir fan also, no? Gautam Gambhir got 97 in the World Cup.
Yes, could be a Gautam Gambhir fan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very important innings. So
yeah.
could be
yeah,
one of
World Cup winning innings.
Of course, so it could be that as well. Write in and tell us, are you a Gautam Gambhir fan or you born in 97? Let us know what it is.
He can be 97-year-old as well. Why you
All
missing
right,
that?
Zach.
Because I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. You want my theory on that? Gyan Mama Gawa.
Give us your theory.
Because a 97-year-old will not have the name Ayush. It's a pretty new name. Like these days.
See,
like,
and he says he doesn't play chess.
He can be a
And
good
he's
chess
saying he
player.
doesn't play
because-
chess. He's always thought that one move ahead,
showing
Zach.
all the
I think you
signs,
should start playing chess. Rohan.
names keep changing out of generation. Na? Ayush is not a 97-year-old name.
Yeah.
Ayush is a pretty recent name, I think.
Well, if it was Zion or Ayan, then we would have known it's
Then
this
it's- yeah, it's
generation.
this
So it's
generation.
clearly not that. Ayush, just please tell us what it is. Please tell us. We're very curious to know. We have to have a look at the prediction game because you all did pretty well in the first innings. The
50%
second innings,
right.
Sri Lanka didn't do well at all. 20 in a power play. How are we
Yeah.
going to ever predict that, right? But let's have a look at what's happened on that leaderboard there. Murli Karthik is up there and Zach has climbed the charts quickly. Well done, Zach.
Yeah, so the
Rohan, I don't see you.
the frustration
I'm there.
was
There you are.
25%.
Yes.
the
I'm
frustration was
there.
not only in Sri Lanka camp, it was here as
Yeah,
well.
yeah,
right?
yeah, also.
Yeah.
Yeah, I needed that
I would
bit to
have
just
beaten.
go on that side.
I would have beaten Murli Karthik.
Arey, yaar.
Oh,
Taken his picture from there, from the frame.
Murli Karthik.
He wouldn't have been too happy.
No, because
It's an
he's-
open battle. Don't worry.
It's an open.
I mean, he's clicked the picture for this. So,
Yeah,
well, he
yeah.
wouldn't be happy at all. As you all can see here, it's clearly Team Cricbuzz and Murli Karthik fighting alone. Like Harry Brook fought alone yesterday. That's what has happened at Team Cricbuzz here. Is Murli Karthik's fighting alone. Zach, thank you very much for today.
Pleasure.
Rohan, thank you very much for today. I don't think you all are both in tomorrow.
No, not me.
Yes, but I know that everyone needs to rest because Zach and Rohan don't feel the pressure. Even if it's a big day where you have to watch two games as Indian fans, root for South Africa. Clearly, you can't be working tomorrow. You'll have to get priorities right. Be here at Cricbuzz at 2:30 because we'll be here. Thank you so much for watching Cricbuzz Live.